Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. This isn't a story I ever imagined sharing publicly, but the situation has become so surreal, manipulative, and emotionally draining that I need to hear from people outside my life bubble. I'm 46 now, and for the first time in over a decade, my past has come crashing into my present in a way I never expected. I've tried to make peace with the choices I made, even when they came at a heavy cost. I've tried to build a new life, one based on love, honesty, and respect, the very things I was denied in my first marriage. But apparently, my son sees it differently. When I was 21, I married my ex-husband. I won't sugarcoat it. I was young, naive, and thought that love could fix anything. He was charming in public, confident, and came from a tough love kind of family. We had a son a year later, and I threw myself into motherhood with everything I had. But behind closed doors, my marriage was lonely, exhausting, and humiliating. My ex was never violent, but he was emotionally cruel in ways that left scars no one could see. He cheated constantly, shamelessly, and always made sure I knew it was my fault. If I confronted him, I was called paranoid or hysterical. If I cried, he mocked me. He'd disappear for entire weekends without explanation and return smelling like perfume or with lipstick on his shirt. The gaslighting was relentless. I stayed because I didn't know how to leave. Because every time I considered it, he'd remind me that no one would believe me, that I'd ruin our child's life, and that I'd be alone forever. I tried to shield my son from it. I tried to protect him from seeing the truth. I smiled when I was crumbling, told him stories about his dad being busy with work, and went to parent-teacher nights alone. I thought I was doing the right thing. And my son, for whatever reason, idolized his father. Even when he was absent, cold, dismissive, he was the fun parent, the one who didn't discipline, who bought pizza and played video games once a week when he felt like showing up. I was the boring one, the strict one, the constant. When my son was around 10, the cheating became impossible to hide. My ex stopped pretending. He would openly flirt with other women in front of me, even bring them to events under the excuse that they were co-workers or just friends. One night I found messages on his phone that were so degrading, so explicit, and so clearly mocking me. I finally snapped. I confronted him in front of our son. It wasn't ideal, but I'd reached a breaking point. My ex laughed, told our son I was crazy again, causing a rift in our family, and walked out the door. That night, I made the decision to file for divorce. I thought my son would understand. I thought eventually he'd see the truth. But he didn't. He was 12 and angry and convinced I had destroyed our family. My ex poisoned the well even further. Told him I was trying to take everything, that I wanted to ruin him, that I was tearing the family apart over some silly drama. My son believed him. He refused to speak to me during the custody process. When I tried to call, he hung up. When I wrote letters, he didn't respond. By the time he turned 14, he told me directly he didn't want to see me anymore, that I had given up on our family, that I was selfish and should have stuck it out like real wives do. His words, not mine. I was devastated. For 2 years, I tried to reach out. Birthdays, holidays, random check-ins. I got nothing back, not even a reply. Eventually, I stopped trying. My lawyer advised me that forcing visitation with a resistant teen would do more harm than good. And truthfully, I didn't have the emotional energy left to keep walking into that rejection. I accepted that I had lost him, at least for now, and tried to rebuild. A few years after the divorce, I met someone new. He was everything my ex wasn't. Faithful, respectful, and kind. He never raised his voice, never made me feel small, and he listened, really listened, when I spoke. He was also well known in the community due to his work in local government and came from an affluent family that was deeply involved in civic initiatives. At first, I kept our relationship quiet, unsure if I could trust the happiness. But then he proposed, we married and had a daughter together, who is now 6. She is the light of my life, a little spitfire with her father's confidence and my eyes. Our home is calm, joyful, and safe, The kind of environment I used to dream of during the worst years of my first marriage, and didn't imagine it could exist in reality. Until last month, I hadn't heard a single word from my son in nearly 10 years. Then, out of the blue, I got a message request on social media. It was him. My heart stopped. I thought maybe, just maybe, he wanted to reconnect. Maybe he wanted to meet his little sister. Maybe, after all this time, we could finally talk like two adults, start healing, clear up the lies and hurt. I replied instantly. We arranged to meet. I was anxious but hopeful. I even told my husband, who offered to give us space and take our daughter out for the afternoon. My son showed up. We made awkward small talk. I asked how he'd been, what he was doing, if he wanted to meet his sister. He waved that off. Then he dropped the real reason he had come. He wanted me to buy him a car. He said he was tired of relying on public transportation, that his dad couldn't afford to help, and that I owed him for abandoning the family. That I had walked out, remarried a wealthy man, and was living a happy, wealthy life. That my daughter has all the privilege while he doesn't. He said it wasn't fair that my new husband had money, and his dad didn't. That it was time I made things right. I was speechless. After 10 years of silence, this is what he came for. Not connection, not understanding. But money? As if I was an ATM, he'd finally remembered the PIN number too. I calmly told him that I was sorry he felt that way, but I didn't owe him anything. That my husband certainly didn't owe him anything. That I had tried, for years, to reach out and rebuild, and was rejected every time. I told him I hoped he would reflect on the fact that his first contact in a decade was a demand. He said I was cold, said I was abandoning him again. Then he said something that made my blood run cold, that if I didn't help him, he'd make sure everyone knew who I really was, that he'd go to the press, post on social media, that he'd tell everyone how I left my child behind for a rich man and a new baby. I laughed. I couldn't help it. I told him I wasn't afraid of threats, that I'd spent 10 years being blamed for saving myself from a toxic marriage, and I was done apologizing. I walked him to the door and told him I hoped he found peace, and a better way to ask for help. He left without another word. Since then, I've been getting cryptic messages from accounts I don't recognize. Some hinting at exposing the truth, others asking why I abandoned my real family. A couple of local gossip forums even had anonymous posts about local officials' wives with secrets. I know it's him, and I know it's designed to shame me back into submission, but I won't do it. I won't be blackmailed by my own child. I won't throw money at a boy who sees me as a villain in a story he only knows one side of and doesn't even want to hear another. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder if I'm being too harsh, if I should have kept trying longer. He still was a child when I left and my ex poisoned his mind. Part of me, the part that still remembers him as a baby in my arms, wonders if I should have done something differently. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for refusing to buy my adult son a car after he ghosted me for 10 years and now is threatening to ruin my reputation because I said no? OBT is definitely not the a-hole here. She didn't abandon her son. She escaped a toxic marriage. And it sounds like she tried for years to maintain a relationship with him while he chose to support his father and ignore OP. Now that OP is remarried and stable, suddenly he wants to pop back into AOP's life. Not to reconnect, but to demand a car. Like OP is some kind of piggy bank, and threatening to ruin OP's reputation? That's manipulative and disgusting. He's not looking for healing. He's looking for leverage. OP is not heartless. She is setting the boundary he never expected she would have the strength to enforce. Good for OP. And now let's hear community's opinion. Your son grew up drinking his father's poison. And now he's come back to bleed you dry out of entitlement, not love. You tried. You reached out. You were rejected. He didn't want a relationship. He wanted a transaction. His threats prove that. He doesn't care about healing a mother-son bond. He cares about punishing you for daring to move on and be happy without him and his father. Not the a-hole. Keep your boundaries strong. If he wants a car, he can earn it like everyone else. Respect isn't a family discount. The audacity of this kid is staggering. Not only did he cut you out, but now he's resurfacing to demand money and threaten you when you don't cave. What happened to him was sad. Kids get caught in the middle of awful divorces all the time, but he's 20 now. He's old enough to own his decisions. And instead of owning them, he's trying to manipulate you into buying a car by dangling your reputation over your head. That's not a son. That's a grifter with your last name. Not the a-hole. Protect your peace. This hit me hard. My mom left my dad after years of emotional abuse, and I didn't understand until I got older. The difference. When I reconnected, I apologized. I listened. I didn't demand anything except forgiveness. Your son isn't ready for a relationship. He's still in blame mom mode, just like your ex trained him to be. Buying him a car would just confirm what he already believes, that he can guilt you into anything. You don't owe him a car. You don't owe him silence. And your new family deserves better than to see you used. Not the a-hole at all. Background. I have 2 daughters, Annie, 24, and Sarah, 28. Not their real names. Annie is about to graduate with her social work degree. She has a job lined up in a new city. When Sarah graduated, we gifted her with a family trip to Australia. We spent 2 weeks there and the girls loved it. They both went to top universities. Current situation. Due to the current world situation, Sarah was laid off for a few months, but eventually got a new job that makes a lot less than she used to. She's going through her savings, but seems to be doing all right for now. She hasn't asked for money once. She's considering going back to school to change careers to technology field, because her field has been having issues since everything closed down. Annie, however, is set on being a social worker. Her new job is in an expensive city to live in, and as a social worker, she won't make much over the course of her career. Not as much as Sarah eventually will if she returns to what she previously made, or if she gets a job in the tech field. My husband and I agreed to put a down payment on a house for Annie as her graduation gift. We will also pay the first year of her mortgage to allow her to save up and adjust to the cost of living in that new city. It's not far from where we live, whereas Sarah lives in a completely different area. We've been house hunting and found her a nice house in a really safe area that's on the higher end. But safety was a huge priority for us because she's a woman living alone. Annie has already started moving her things in and asked her sister to help her move in. Sarah didn't know we bought her sister a house and was a bit upset. She did help her sister move in, but doesn't really speak to us that much anymore. She used to come around every once in a while, but doesn't call anymore. We asked Annie about it since Sarah doesn't really answer us anymore, and Anna said that Sarah was upset about the difference in gifts. We tried to explain that Annie has a master's degree, so the difference makes sense. Plus, it wasn't a safe area like where Sarah lives. I didn't think it was that big of a deal until Sarah started pulling away. We can't really afford to buy both of them houses, and we already signed the papers for Annie's new place. My husband agrees that Sarah should be happy with the gift she received, since she had fun while in Australia, and is only upset now because she thinks she deserves more. Annie is a bit torn, but agrees that she needs her new place, but she gets where her sister is coming from. My mother thinks I'm not treating Sarah fairly, and that she should get something as well. But Annie will eventually take over paying the mortgage, while Sarah might not be able to because she doesn't make as much as she used to. So, am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. Sarah got a family holiday, which everyone benefited from. Annie received a gift that was solely hers and was probably of much greater financial value than Sarah's. Both daughters should be treated the same, masters or not. You're the a-hole. First of all, you gifted Sarah with a family trip to Australia, which means Annie got both the trip and a house. Second, of course she's unhappy with the gift now that she sees that you spent way more on your other daughter, like more than twice as much according to your comment. And let's bear in mind that the cost of the trip wasn't even just for Sarah, because you all went. Of course, it's a huge deal. A trip is a fun experience, but a house means way more. You showed preferential treatment to Annie. Don't act surprised when Sarah doesn't want as much of a relationship anymore now that she knows where she stands with you. It's not about the money. It's about what the money says about how much you value each of your daughters. I wouldn't talk to you anymore either. You're the a-hole. Let's break it down. Out of the family trip, which was $10,000, Sarah got $2,500. The rest was used on the rest of you. Annie, $35,000 house, including the first year's mortgage payments. That is a difference of $32,500. There is no way you are not an a-hole in this situation. Altogether, you are spending nearly $50,000, house, mortgage, and trip, on one child, and $2,500 on the other. No wonder Sarah is pulling away from all of you. I would too. I, 45 male, and my ex split 8 years ago. I met my current wife during our divorce and married her pretty quickly after it was finalized. I now live with my wife, 41 female, and stepson, 16 male. And while my ex offered 50-50 custody of our daughter, 15 female, I felt it better she stay with her mother so I could adjust to life with my new wife and stepson. So she came every other weekend before the virus. She's been with her mom since March. Here's where the issue comes in. My stepson feels threatened by my daughter when she's here. I'm the only father figure he's ever had, and he doesn't like sharing my attention. So he's often quite rude or mean to her. We normally just assure her it's because he's insecure. My stepson came home yesterday cheerfully saying that my daughter said she'd never come here again. I called my daughter to ask why she said that. According to her, my stepson has been saying since school resumed that I picked him over her and that I hated her coming to visit and how everyone was so happy these months she didn't visit. No one wanted her there and she needed to just stay away from us. He denied it, of course, but my daughter's friend filmed him at some point. Gotta love the age of smartphones. And sent it to me. When confronted, he got watery-eyed and said he was just afraid of losing me. I told my daughter that I obviously didn't feel that way, and he just felt threatened by her presence. She asked if I was going to actually do something about his behavior this time, or if I was just going to brush it under the rug like I always did. I told her I didn't brush anything under the rug, but I wasn't going to punish him for being insecure about losing his father figure. She told me she was tired of his daddy issues being an excuse to treat her like crap, and since I wouldn't stand up for her, she wouldn't be visiting again. I tried to talk to my ex about it, but she said I picked him over her repeatedly and never stood up for her when he treated her poorly, so I don't get to play the victim now that she's fed up with it. I think they're both being oversensitive here, and my daughter needs to get over it and visit again. But my brother said I let my stepson boost my ego and failed my daughter by not standing up for her. My nephew suggested I post here. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. You did pick your new family over her, and then repeatedly leave her needs and emotions out of the equation. Yep, you're the a-hole. How do you not see this? Do you prefer stepson because he's a boy? It sounds like you are picking him first again and again. You even rejected 50% custody of your own kid. How is this a mystery to you? Yo, you're the a-hole for sure, man. You won't even stand up for your daughter when she is being picked on. Kid was right. You were choosing him over your daughter, and I don't blame her. May her mom and God make sure she doesn't develop daddy issues. I, 21 male, and my fiancée Tina, 25 female, recently went with my parents to an expensive restaurant to talk some stuff out about our wedding. The person who was going to pay for it ducked out because of some things that happened in the family recently, and my parents said that they would consider paying for a wedding if the cost was slightly reduced. While there, me and Tina didn't get anything expensive. I got a salad, and Tina got a soup, and we were talking about the wedding. My mom said, "Let's talk about kids. How many grandbabies do you plan on giving us?" Me and Tina kind of laughed because we thought she was joking. I'm asexual, used to be bi, and both me and Tina are carriers of cystic fibrosis, and most kids with that disease don't even make it through their teen years. With that said, me and Tina have both talked with my parents numerous times about us possibly adopting. But even that was unlikely, because neither of us want kids. I asked my mom if she was serious, and my dad popped up with, "Yeah, we're willing to negotiate with you to pay for your wedding, so you should be able to negotiate on having kids. And don't give me that adoption BS. Adopted kids aren't real kids." Tina is adopted. I told my dad to back off. He knows we're both carriers of cystic fibrosis. And he said, "Just pray about it. God can completely take care of that for you. If you pray, your kid won't even have to worry about being sick." And then my mom said, "I don't know if God will answer. Neither of them are straight." Me and Tina got up and basically told my mom and dad that they insulted Tina. He'd insulted me. He'd even insulted the God that he claimed to worship. And that if their demands included us having possible heartbreak and pain in our lives, we would pay for the wedding ourselves. My parents told us they were joking about God not answering because we aren't straight, and that we need to have thicker skin and to come sit down and we would have a grown-up conversation. But I told them nope, the conversation was over, and I would Venmo them the cost of our food. My parents were pissed. We left, and Tina cried when we got home. My parents texted me about how crappy it was of me to leave them with the bill, and that I need to grow up and we would never be able to afford a wedding without them. And if we can't even afford a baby, how will we afford a wedding? I just started leaving them on red. Then Tina's parents, who are close friends with mine, called and berated me over how I treated my parents and told me to apologize. I told them this wouldn't be happening at all if they hadn't backed out of helping pay for the wedding, and they shut up after that. After the way Tina cried for hours, I don't think I'm the a-hole, but I thought I'd ask here, am I the a-hole for this? If Tina's parents call to berate you again, tell them your parents think that adopted kids aren't real kids and caused their adopted daughter to cry. I think that will change their opinion on the situation immediately. Not the a-hole. Forget about the bill. Let's talk about the wedding. Since the list of invitees just got smaller, you might well be able to afford something more modest. Then, on your 10th anniversary, do a big vow renewal kind of thing. Tell your respective parents when the wedding will be, but not where, and if they pray hard enough, God will surely send them invitations. Not the a-hole. Pay for your own wedding and don't invite either set of parents. They are parents in name only. They are not supportive of you two as individuals or a couple. Invite people that support you. They will be your family. You are better off not having them pay for it, as they will try to control you for it. My boyfriend and I have been together for 6 years. I recently bought a house and we live together. Shortly after, his daughter's mom became homeless. His daughter is 20 and had been living with her. She called and asked to come live with us. I agreed, on the condition that she clean up after herself and help out around the house. We've had problems with that in the past when she stayed with us. That only lasted a couple weeks, and then she refused to help out or clean up after herself. Every time I would ask her to, I would get, "I'm not here to be your maid," and things like that. I mostly have my boyfriend deal with her, but her and I have some arguments over it as well. The other day I wasn't feeling well, so I decided to work from home. She did not realize this. As I was in my office working, she was in the kitchen and had her phone on speaker. She was talking with her mom. It was basically a 20-minute conversation about what a bee I am, and how she can't stand me, and how much she hates me, and hates living with me and being around me. She also said maybe she will fall down the stairs, referring to the fact that I am currently pregnant. My boyfriend was out of the country on business at the time. I walked into the kitchen behind her and loudly said, "Since you hate me so much, you can pack your stuff and get the duck out." She's now couch surfing with her mom. My boyfriend supports me. His ex and daughter say I'm the a-hole because I made her homeless. So, do your thing. Not the a-hole. Something just truly irks me about ungrateful individuals. There was no shred of moral or legal obligation on your end to take her into your home. So, do your thing and keep that bee out of your house. I'm pretty sure wishing your pregnant landlord falls down the stairs, never paying rent, and not helping around the house was what made her homeless. You'd think if you were that worried about homelessness that you'd be more eager to pull your weight. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. She's 20 years old. She can get a job and help pitch in to get a place with her mom, or she could have cleaned up after herself. If she hates you so much and can't clean up after herself, why give her a place to stay at your expense? The least she could do is clean up the messes she makes. I think it's disgusting that she made a comment hoping you would fall down the stairs. My father passed away a couple months ago. We knew it was coming, and there was plenty of time to prepare for it. He had a long and successful career in his younger days. 5 years ago, he sold his home to move into a very, very nice old folks' home. I'll never know how much, but we can safely say he likely had at least a couple million. He loved his alma mater and was very involved in the voluntary alumni relations department in his retirement. A couple years ago, he told me he planned to donate his entire estate to their alumni scholarship fund. He had always been a generous man, so this didn't really shock me. I never really thought about it since. Then, when he passed, all the funeral arrangements and whatnot were already paid for, and he had a relatively small life insurance policy at that point to just ensure that nobody would have expenses associated with his death. He had a longtime lawyer friend and CPA who then officially told me and my siblings about his will. As he told me, everything was gifted to the university fund. So I wasn't surprised, but I guess he never told my siblings this. They were very surprised, wanted to challenge it, and when I said I already knew about it, they flipped. They asked some lawyers supposedly, and they have no case. He was in sound mind when he made his will, so it's cut and dry. But my siblings are pissed at me, saying when he told me, I should have tried to convince him otherwise. Told them so they could also try to convince him otherwise. We've gotten into it lately about it, and I just feel like it's all unnecessary. Our dad was always generous with us, paid for our schooling, weddings, and all the main parent things. I really don't care about not having an inheritance because we otherwise were always given everything we need. Was I being an a-hole by not telling them? It really didn't even cross my mind. Not the a-hole. Your father's finances were not your business to talk about. If your father wanted your siblings to know in advance, he would have told them in advance. Not the a-hole. Your father chose to confide in you. Your father chose not to confide in your siblings. Probably because he knew you would respect his decision, while they would pile on to try to get him to change his mind. If your father wanted them to know in advance, he would have told them, as he told you. It was not your place to undermine his estate planning, or enable others to pressure him to make decisions he didn't want, especially because it sounds as if he was a caring parent and good provider, so that an inheritance now would be a windfall locking in generational wealth, not support for them to get established as self-sufficient adults. I'm guessing from all you wrote that your father had good reason to tell you specifically, and not your siblings. It was not a fight he needed to have in the fall season of his life, nor is it a fight you should bother with. Keep your head up. Not the a-hole.